I once thought that healing was just about the ones and the zeros, the nutrition, the movement, but has really showed me a deeper spiritual level of healing that it's absolutely transformed my life. I have a special guest with me. I call him my soul brother, George Apecechea. George is a former entrepreneur who is now a seminarian who's stepping into the looking to become a missionary priest. Is that correct?
Yes.
And really excited to have him on the show because he's really made a huge impact in my life on my healing journey. I once thought that healing was just about the ones and the zeros, the nutrition, the movement, but has really showed me a deeper spiritual level of healing that it's absolutely transformed my life. We've spent the past a week or so really diving deep into some of the stuff we're going to talk to you about on this show. And so I'm just really excited to have you on here, brother.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. Honored to be here with you and with all the audience.
Awesome. So before we dive in, just a reminder, you are tuning into Looking for Healing Radio. We go live every weekday at 11 o'clock Eastern time. So yeah, be sure to tune in not just to this show, but also all the incredible guests. And yeah, really appreciate you being here on your health journey. And if you do ever miss a show, you can always listen to this on your favorite podcast network, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, etc. So with that said, I don't want to waste any time. Let's dive in. And so today we're talking about what's the theme for today's show, George?
The theme is becoming the tree of life
Mm,
and facilitating healing.
yeah, yeah. Love it. So I wanted to bring this to you guys because for the longest time, I personally, like I said, really struggled. I've been on a continuous healing journey, and I fell into so many different rabbit holes and directions of how to heal. And while a lot of them did make like a big progress in my life and did help me heal to a degree, I continuously hit this like wall over and over again, and could not seemingly get past it. So I wanted to bring you on here because again, you've really helped me step deeper into this transformation. And I figured this is something that the world needs to hear. And so would love to just start off with the simple question of, yeah, what is becoming a tree of life actually mean?
Hmm. Well, we take it to Genesis. In the story of Genesis, there's a tree of life, right? And it's that famous tree of life with fruit that becomes the forbidden fruit. And Eve and Adam take of this forbidden fruit. They steal, they break a covenant with God, they disobey God. So that's the original tree of life in the story. So that was a disobedience of God that led to disalignment, disorder, disease, right? And it led to a lot of darkness and a lot of death. And fast forward in the story, later we have Jesus, who's in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's on his knees agonizing, the agony in the garden. And what does he do? Well, where Eve and Adam just with reckless abandon entered into their hedonism and to their selfish desire to steal, to take the fruit, to disobey. Think about it like a party of the forbidden in that garden in Genesis. Later in the Gospels, Jesus redeems that because he's not celebrating, but he's agonizing in the garden. So he redeems that not through hedonistic selfish ego, but through suffering, through tears, through pain for his beloved people. Then later he's on a cross. So the cross becomes the new tree of life. And Jesus is the fruit. Where the fruit was stolen in Genesis by Adam and Eve, the new fruit, which is through Mary's fruit of her womb, is restored to the tree, which is the cross. So this is kind of like the cosmic balance of the disobedience and the far extreme of hedonism and selfishness and ego and taking, to the other extreme, which is giving, surrender, loving, obedience, not disobedience, to restore the balance. to restore life, and to heal the brokenness of that first disobedience.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to say to you guys listening, this might sound a little radical. You might be wondering, like, what did I just tune into? I just want to just say, like, I have a Jewish upbringing, and ultimately, I don't think it really matters. You probably say it really doesn't matter what your religious background is. Obviously, being a Catholic, it's your background that you'll probably resonate a little bit more. But really, these are universal truths, and I can speak. I'll just speak for myself, in that, like, on this journey, I found myself really falling into like a victimhood trap, where it's, I would heal one thing, and then I would um and then the next thing would pop up, and it just kind of be over and over again. And maybe you can relate to this. I would find myself just wishing, just praying, like it would just go away. Like, when will this ailment go away? When will I finally be good? When will I finally be whole? When will I finally be able to heal? And that way, then I can go out and do and help the world. And I can then go help my family. I can go out and be finally good. I can finally live my life. I can finally be happy. And I just wanted to share that, for the listeners, for you hearing that, because I think what George has to say is really valuable to help us kind of break out of that paradigm. Because in my experience, that paradigm just kept me stuck over and over again, just trying to crawl out of a wall that had no top to it, just continuously climb. So I wanted to bring that up and just see if you had anything you want to add to that, any thoughts on what I shared there.
Yeah, only that we know what the original tree of life was according to the biblical story, but and we know how that was redeemed, in the continuation of that story through Christ, through Mary. But really, where the rubber meets the road is like, okay, what does that mean for us in our life? And really, what that points to is that there's an invitation, there's an option, a choice to either go through life in this mystical forest of life, where there's so many things, plethora of options of things that you can explore, and comforts, and different options for you to be happy and comfortable, right? So think about yourself in this mystical forest with a big basket, taking of the fruit of all the trees, as much as you want, taking of every tree, the one that's pleasing to the eye, and you're filling your basket. On the surface, it might sound good, right? But taking the fruit, taking more than you need, becoming obsessed with the fruit, the different kinds of fruit, the sizes of the fruit, who knows, getting another basket. Like, does that really lead to happiness? Does that really lead to wholeness? Does that really lead to healing? That's one option. Or the second option it's shown to us is, instead of going through this forest and taking of the fruit, what if we became the tree of life? What would that look like? That means that there's a certain amount of fruit that you need to have a baseline, to be able to operate, to have a little for yourself. But we really don't need too much. We don't need those many options or those many fruits. But as soon as we're good and stable and able, willing, we can become a tree of life. That means that we can be a tree of life, offering our shade for others to come under our shade, to rest in the coolness of our shade, and to pick of our fruit. And for us to have the heart posture to freely give of our shade and give of our fruit to anyone and everyone who needs it. When we become the tree of life, we enter into surrender to God, and we enter into the eternity of life, giving, sharing, contributing. That's when we enter into our highest call, which is to love. So giving and loving is the way that we become fully alive, and that we heal, and that we contribute maximally to the mystical body, right? All of us together, that we're in this together, not by taking, but by giving.
Love it. I feel called to ask because I think listeners hearing this will say like, wow, like this sounds cool, sounds nice, but like, man, like in my life, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how I can apply this. We're going to get into the application of how to actually apply this to our lives. But what I feel called to ask, if you're open to sharing, is you've got a pretty radical story, going from being an entrepreneur and really being deep into that world to now shifting into being a seminarian and diving deep into your faith. I think that your story is a story of shifting from being a taker of fruit to becoming a tree of life. And so what I would love to hear is if you want to give a kind of a brief explanation of your story and how you, because I know your story very intimately, and I know that you were in a place where it was constantly, like we talk about, ego, pride, trying to grasp on as much fruit as we can, and eventually I know you hit a point where is I can't keep taking this fruit. I need to become this. I want to give. I want to serve my people.
Yes.
So I would love for you to kind of share more about your story.
Yeah, I'll give you the quick rundown.
Cool.
Okay. There's a few keystone moments in my life. First one is at 12 years old. Life was pretty good at 12, but I found myself in kind of like this moment where my mind and my world opened up to broad concepts that kids don't really think about, like life and death. And there were some struggles in my family, some losses, some deaths in my family. And I started to become an easy target because I was such a nice kid. So I started to get attacked and bullied and beat up and kicked and jumped and kicked in the ribs. It's pretty bad. So I had this really heavy darkness over me that was remedied one night. Can't explain it. I felt out of options for 3 months. After like 3 months in this state, I remember going into my room and saying, I'm going to pray with my whole heart for the first time. For the first time, because before that, prayers were just kind of like lip service. Right. But this time I was in desperation. So I closed the blinds, closed the door, got on my knees to pray for 10, 15 minutes, what I thought. Ended up praying the entire night, waking up in a little ball beside my bed. And in the morning, the sun came through the blinds, and my depression and anxiety and my stress, it completely went away. And the days kept going and rolling on in weeks, and the feeling would not leave. So I knew that my surrender to prayer, that my surrender to God, to allow him in my life, really healed me of all of that darkness, of all that anxiety, of all the stress, of all the just darkness that was in my life at that time. So that's whenever I knew God was real and that he was working in my life. Fast forward 12 to 18 years old, I would go to church because I was so thankful of this thing that happened in my life. And I was deeply into the church as an altar server, as a youth group leader, in the choir, going to retreats. So that at 18, I had an opportunity to go to a retreat that was for vocation awareness. So I got to, rub elbows and be around seminarians and priests. And I said, I know it. I know this is what I want to do. Tender young George at 18, this is what I want to do. So full of zeal and excitement, I went to my parents and I said, hey, I want to enter the seminary. I want to be fully committed and consecrated to God. And it was too much for them. It was too much for them. And God bless their hearts. They love me. They want the best for me. They essentially talked me out of it, telling me that I should just take a more normal path in life, take a safer route, kind of like the fear of the unknown. Yeah. And so I listened to them. And for most of my life, I went in job after job, girlfriends, in the world, trying to make a name for myself, taking of the fruit. And nothing really fulfilled me. Nothing ultimately satiated my thirst that I had. I was always with this restless soul, right? What's the thing that's going to finally fulfill me? And then I went to San Diego, which was kind of like the final frontier, because I'm from Texas. I went to San Diego to pursue entrepreneurship online. and I started to make strides in the professional world. And whenever I reached the peak of my, 4 or 5 year efforts in business, along the time I met you, we connected. That's whenever the Lord came back, like when I was 18, almost like coming back for me, like, hey, I still want you, and I still want you to serve me. And it was at a moment in my life where I was very conflicted because I had all the things, the fruit in the basket that I wanted, that I thought I wanted, but he was asking me to just surrender it and trust him so that he can give me something greater. And I did that. And the thing that he gave me was purpose, peace, wholeness, and just the ability to tap into the eternal and to serve, to be that tree of life, to embody that. And that's the greatest adventure of my life. And that's why we're talking about it, because I do recommend it for everyone so that we can have a better world.
Thanks for sharing, brother.
Yeah.